I don't trust the agent 100%.
Programming is dead.
They crashed it. Like it will always come back to bite you. It can suggest the necessary actions to use.
It's helped me maybe 10% of the time. You don't always have to do Copilot Studio full version. Welcome to Power Platform Deep Dive. This is a place for honest conversations about building with a Microsoft Power Platform based on real projects and real experience. I'm your host, Kayode Ajayi.
And I'm your host, Annabelle Okonwose. This show is for Power Platform developers, solution architects, and anyone looking to grow and learn in the Power Platform space. If you want practical tips and real-world insight, not just theories, this is the show for you.
So we're going to start with some key updates from the Power Platform and AI from this past week, and we call it the News Roundup.
Yes.
So the first thing I have on my table here is a YouTube video from Lisa Crosbie. And I really love Lisa's videos because of the way she talks about the topics. And she did a video about comparing the difference between Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat and Microsoft Copilot. You know, saying today that everything is called Copilot now. So it gets confusing to know what the difference
which one
is.
which.
So thanks, Lisa, for that video. I'll say it really helps people to understand what the difference is, and that can be very useful when you're trying to build expectations. You want to make sure that you are choosing the right tool for the right job. So it's good to know what's different there.
And off the back of that, Shane Young released a video this week on how to build your PCF control. So if you use the iPhone, you know that iPhone released a new interface called Liquid Glass. And in this video, Shane Young brought a member of his team called Ryan to walk us through creating this Liquid Glass control in your Power Apps. That is awesome. And it's not just that. The best part is he did it by coding. Yes, you heard me right. They vibe coded the whole Liquid Glass PCF control, and you can watch it on the YouTube channel, Shane Young's YouTube channel. In the video, Shane Young also said for those that do not want to build it on their own and they want to download the app, he has the link to the app in his YouTube channel. All the links will be provided in the description.
Oh, that's really nice. I'll say almost all of us in the Power Platform space we're students of Shane Young at a point.
Yes.
Maybe even are still students of Shane Young.
Yes.
Shane for that
Thanks,
video.
Shane.
Personally, I've been doing a lot of vibe coding recently because for
how
me,
are you finding it?
Well, to me, I've come from a coding background. I never got professional with coding, but I love coding. So vibe coding just gives me that platform to be able to say, oh, this is an idea I've had. I've always been scared to build it out because I feel like I won't build it out properly. But now I have an assistant that can help me and we can just go through it in different iterations, and I have more confidence in what I do. So that's really amazing. It's I think we are all gradually finding interesting ways of using AI to bring ideas to life. So that's really amazing.
And I like what you just said. We are all finding an interesting way to use AI. And what that simply means is we're all finding our lane to maximize the AI capabilities.
Exactly.
That's a good one, Kay.
Yeah, thanks, Annabelle. So in other business also, there's a YouTube video about the admin center, the Power Platform admin center. So recently it's been redesigned. If you're still scared of the new interface or you're not sure where to find what, it's a YouTube short and it just gives you a glimpse of the admin center and how to navigate around it. So I'll recommend it. If you're an IT admin, you want to stay on top of those changes, you can watch the video.
Off the back of that, I'm going to be speaking on AI and agent. There's a helpful new concept that Microsoft is talking about. They shared an article on Microsoft Learn called Add Other Agents. This article just explains to us how we'll be able to incorporate agents from Foundry, Fabric, your Microsoft Copilot agent, how we can integrate them together, how we can sync them together and get maximum output. What I think about this article is that it gives us an insight on how to optimize AI agent workflows because now we're able to speak across platforms and get the most of it. I just cannot wait to go deep into all that he has to offer.
That's interesting. I think it's still around the topic of multi-agent orchestration, getting different agents to work
together.
There's a lot of potential with that where you can build experts in certain fields, then orchestrate across different agents. I'll be very glad to see good examples of that. And this leads nicely to another article that we found on Microsoft Learn that talks about AI agent orchestration patterns. So whether you're building in Copilot Studio, you're doing Foundry, or you're even building outside of the Microsoft ecosystem, it's good to know different architectural patterns you can employ when building agents. So it talks about sequential concurrent patterns, a group chat pattern, handoff patterns, magnetic patterns. So different ways, and all of these just talk about different ways of interaction between agents, especially when you're building multi-agent solutions. So that's a really good article to look at. The link is going to be in the description.
For the power folks, I know we've been saying agent and you feel left out, but no, we have something for you. Microsoft just released a quick one. There is a new export and email a report with Power Automate guide. That's very practical. We're going to link it in the description. And for those of us that have to send a report on Monday morning by 8 a.m., you don't have to rush and spill your coffee all over. You can
Uh,
sit back, relax, automate your way through chaos.
That's very good. I've worked with Power BI before in the past. I don't do that every day anymore,
Yes.
unfortunately. But I'll be interested to hear from the Power BI folks. Is this even a new thing, right? Or is this something you've always had? Or is this so much of, is it very impactful? And thinking about it, I feel like it might not even come from the Power BI developers side of things. It might come from a user perspective. Maybe you're creating reports for yourself based on the data you care about. And that might be a use case. I'll be interested to hear from the Power BI folks how useful this feature is. And on the Power App side, on Dataverse side, there's also another Microsoft Learn article we found about talking about how you can connect your Dataverse data to Azure Synapse. And Azure Synapse gives you that analytics view. So you can actually see much more than is even available for you on the admin center, for example. So it will be quite interesting. So it's a good read. Some of these things, you're not necessarily implementing them now, but it's just good to know what is possible. So I'll recommend you have a read of that article.
And just with what he has said about what's good to know that it's possible, knowing what is possible, so when you need it, you can reference it. For those enabling Copilot in the analytics stack, Microsoft Learn for Fabric and Power BI, there's an overview in Copilot in Fabric. So what it explains to you what you can do with it in Power BI service and desktop, how it helps with insight and visualization, and how to enable it. So you are the person that gets to turn it on or turn it off. Message from the leadership. This is your starting point for doing it safely.
Right. That's really good. I think I was in a presentation about the Fabric agents.
Yes.
And from the way the person really explained it to me, it just made me want to go back into Power BI. I'm sure that's a really good article for you to have a read. So for today's deep dive, we're going to be talking about AI automation and ALM. So Annabelle, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Is the Power Platform a good place for you to start AI? So you have Copilot Studio in Power Platform. Is it a
Yes.
good place for you to do AI, or you would rather use some other tools?
I think the Power Platform is an amazing place to do AI because Microsoft Copilot acts like a guide to help even beginners. When you are starting, Copilot has the knowledge library of Power Automate, Power BI, has the knowledge library of Power Apps also. So when you need information regarding that, it is easy for you to sync it. Microsoft also has Copilot in your Microsoft Power Automate. So when you are building an automation flow, it can suggest the necessary actions to use. It can
Mhm.
suggest formulas. So for people that are just starting, that don't really know all the formulas that they should be using, with the Microsoft suggested formula, you'll be able to know that, oh, this is my flow, this is the right formula to write. In Power Apps, when you are, even for the pro that have been working for so long, not just beginners, when you get to an application that you did not build, you are
Right.
able to ask your Copilot chat to explain this formula. And to the best of its knowledge, is going to give you an understanding of the formula that was written there. So that way
Mm,
you can pick up a project that you actually did not even build and
mm,
make impact on it. So
okay.
I think it's amazing. The best option for you would be like using Copilot for Microsoft Power Platform because it's just like the way I see it is Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, Power Platform. They are all siblings, and then we have a
Yeah.
new sibling, Copilot. They are in sync. They speak to each other, and they work
Mm.
beautifully well together.
That's really interesting. I think you said a lot of things that it kind of pricked my fingers because
Yes,
my experience with when you try to use Copilot to write
Copilot.
expressions, especially in Power Automate, I'll say right now is still a work in progress.
Yeah.
Because especially the times when I
Yes.
know I actually need Copilot,
Yeah.
I would say it's helped me maybe 10% of the time. What's your experience with that, especially in Power Automate?
So for Power Automate, I'm still stuck in the old version. Do you know how much I'm stuck in the old version? When I open my Power
Yeah.
Automate and it tells me, do I want to use the no, I don't even use the modal control. That's because I
Oh
am
wow.
very confident in Power Automate. I've been doing Power Automate for years. I'm
Yeah.
used to the old. Do you know how much I love using the old features? I don't like the admin center, the new admin center you were just talking about. I still go back to use classic admin center. I
Oh
still go back to
wow.
view my solutions in the old way. But I think the sweet spot there is for people that are just starting out. I think they might not even know the right action to put. The fact that you can write and explain what you want to do and it will
Yeah.
give you suggestions on the actions to use, that's the sweet spot. For me,
Mm.
that I'm building for a while, if I want to build an automation that uses Microsoft Forms, I know I should do create a form, get
Yeah.
response ID, get the form content. I know the steps to do. When I want to do OneDrive, I know the connectors to use, I know what to talk about, I know what to touch. But a beginner that is just starting does not even know the difference between get form and OneDrive, does not know the difference between
Yeah.
SharePoint as a connector and SQL. So that's a very sweet spot. Beginners can speak
Yeah.
with it. You can come in and say, oh, I want to create a Power Automate that sends out an email. And it goes, yes. The first action will be to write the subject or give you the image email control, put in the name. So it's not all the way there. But for beginners, Power Automate, I think it's good for them.
I think you've sold me on that then because
Ah,
initially I was thinking in terms of building a flow already
yes.
getting complex. I've tried
Yes.
to get Copilot to write an expression because there's some time, especially in Power Automate, you have an idea of what you want to do, but you
Okay.
just need some help in
Something.
kind of breaking it down or
Yes.
what the formula is supposed to do.
To
But
be.
you just need some help in making it real. I've tried to rely on Copilot sometimes on that, and it just a lot of times it just says, "Well, I can't help you," and then I have to bring out my pen and paper. I think
Yes.
I only use pen and paper when I'm doing Power Automate stuff, because
Yes.
especially when you're working with loops and stuff, sometimes you just have to illustrate it, and you've tried to rely on AI for that sometimes, and it doesn't help as much as I would have loved to.
Love to.
But your angle is from initial creation. I
Yeah.
think it's got a plus on that. Then in Power Apps too, when it comes to explaining formulas are
Formula.
helpful. And what I use that for a lot is to comment my code. I just say, explain this formula. I know what it does, but I'm saying, explain the formula. It writes it out for me. I copy it, comment it, and put it in the code.
You
Happy
see?
days. Now I
Eh,
have a connected
you are
code.
happy. Copilot is happy. Everybody's happy. And the next
Everybody.
developer that picks up that app will be happy too because there's a good comment on
Exactly.
it.
Those are interesting cases of using AI, not just for building, but using it as a co-pilot, right? You're using it
Yeah.
to assist what you're building. So that's really good. So in terms of your implementations of co-pilots,
Yes.
not just co-pilots, even though we're kind of talking of AI automation, how much of have you really had the reason to involve pro code in the things you do? So say you're doing AI, say you're doing automation, have you had reasons to go pro code or have you been able to keep everything within the low code ecosystem?
If within the utilization of Copilot, everything has been low code for me. I've
Right.
not had to bring pro code. When I've had to bring pro code was the extensive of the model driven app. Because if you model driven app, there are parts of model driven app that you would now require JavaScript. And
100.
when you are done with JavaScript, I call it the senior code, you now require plugins. So you need C Sharp to write specific plugins. And what I did was I first of all learned the fundamentals, watch YouTube videos on the fundamentals of JavaScript. And so I would write codes with my JavaScript. And when I see that the code the agent gave me I would know when it's correct or not because I know
Mm.
JavaScript syntax. I know
Yeah.
what JavaScript does. I know what is expectant. So I
Yeah.
used it for when I was building model driven app and also Power Pages. Because Power Pages, you can add unique HTML and CSS. You can also add unique liquid to the backend to change
Yeah.
how it interacts. So
Yeah.
I've used charts and used agents to code in that aspect. But in my
Yeah.
Power Automate and in my Power Apps, because Canvas apps necessarily does not need code, so
Yeah.
much code. Some people still do code. I've not really
Okay.
had to use it there. Power Automate is just HTML concept. And I think we already have website that does that for us.
Mm.
What about you?
I always try to keep things on the low code end. And
Yes,
when it comes to even the JavaScript in model driven app, one thing I like about that is the kind of things you need JavaScript
JavaScript
for.
for.
There are not many. And once you've solved it in a project, you
You
can
can
literally
repeat.
apply it to other projects. You're just going to change
That's
some
true.
ideas. And so I think what I've tried to do is to have a repository of some of the solutions. And when I have a project that needs it, I just pick it up and change the IDs and all. So, but with AI now, maybe even that process is going to be faster. Well, if I have
Yes.
it, I just get the AI copilots to or AI agent to just rewrite it and retarget it to the new scenario. So that's interesting. Now to my hot take.
Yes.
You don't need to learn the underlying technology anymore. You just need a problem solving mindset. So you know how you said with JavaScript, you had to learn JavaScript first. So you went to actually when it's wrong.
Yes.
But now you don't need to do that. That's my hot take. What do you think?
So for me, I've had this conversation where people say, is this still important to learn coding? I
Hmm.
just feel even if you have the problem solving mind, I don't trust the agent 100% because I
Hmm.
think it's still going to make some errors and I need to be able to spot it out. It makes troubleshooting faster for me in my own world in the way I've used it. There are probably tools that write 100% correct JavaScript, but the JavaScript will also write for model driven apps are quite unique. It's the same, but in reference to ID, in reference to speaking to columns, in reference to speaking
Right.
to hidden fields that are not showing. Even though I explained it for the agent, I also want a level of control. So it's just the fundamentals. And some people be like, they don't need it. The reason why I even picked it up was I was using the agent to write the JavaScript at a point, but it wasn't working. And so I needed to know why was my code not working well. And then if you go, there are so many articles where people will drop their JavaScript code and they are able to explain it. And then I compare it with what I have, and I'm like, this agent wasn't the best at this point. And so I'm able to like, pick up and say, oh, this is the next thing to do in the next one. So I have it on my mind that when there's a problem now, I know
Yeah.
this could be a possible issue. And also, I can train my agents better. I can go back and tell my agent, well, in the code you sent, there's an issue there. I think you should put that in memory. And so it's able to put it in the memory of my agent and it does better. What is your take? Do you think you should not learn coding at all? Some people are just like, they are not going to learn coding. But I am just
Well,
like, I
yeah.
really think we should know the basic. What do you think?
Yeah, I just wanted to cause trouble to me.
This is a big topic. You guys should put in the description. What do you think? Are you in this section where you're like I'm not going to learn it at all, or a section where you're like I'm going to learn it? You guys should let us know in the
Yeah,
chat.
so my
Oh,
ChatGPT, they did this summary at the end of
yes,
the year last year. One
yes,
of my top prompts to
yes.
ChatGPT was, "You are wrong." I
Wow.
could actually say that, and I didn't even know that I was constantly challenging it with stuff. That I could only say that because I knew the right thing. So there's a point where you know what's right, and
Yeah.
you're not going to let the AI agent tell you
Agent.
something else because
Yeah.
you actual right thing. So it's very beneficial to know the underlying technology.
Yes.
It also reminds me of somebody who posted on Twitter that programming is dead. That
Oh,
now I just built a whole website within 24 hours, and he put the link to the website on the Twitter post.
yeah.
And
Oh, and they
within
crashed
a
it.
few hours,
Ah, yes. They crashed it. I saw that one.
in a few hours, they hacked the website, they ran
Yes.
up his bill and everything, and he came
Yeah.
back. crying that, oh no, what have I done?
I
It's
think there
like,
are people that have been doing it for a while. Like
yeah,
we cannot just like throw them out on the way.
yeah,
The agents are going to get to that point, but we also need people to utilize it. And also
yeah,
it's good for us to even have a basic understanding of what we are saying and what we are doing. I think it
yeah,
gives a level of confidence also.
it does 100%.
And on your topic on agent prompt, since you are the pro at agent prompt, I have a question for you. How would you organize a prompt library for your team? And also,
Mhm.
sorry, it's two face. What is your approach to prompt engineering as a maker?
I really like that. So, and it's interesting you said that because recently, I think just this past week, I was having a conversation with my team how it's going to be beneficial for us to have like library, like a prompt
Yes,
library, because we've done a lot of successful projects. But one thing I've realized is when we have a new project, we are more or less doing the work again from scratch. And in my role, I try to think of how can we do things more efficiently, right? How can we
yes,
avoid doing the same thing we've done before? So my big plan is you have a library, so she's hosted in Dataverse on SharePoint that has lessons learned, that has the architecture, that has the prompts that we've used on successful projects. Then we build an agent over an agent that can see all of that data, and if we have a new project, we just chat with the agent and we can learn from the things we've done before. So obviously the agent is not going to just print out a whole new agent, right? But you can take a lot of good things because you've tested it. It's different
yes,
when you're just writing a new prompt and you're not sure if you're going to get a result. You
yes,
have successful prompts that you've written and you've been able to get good output from it. So why not just take all of that, use it as a knowledge base and build a new agent using that data, and the agent can actually tell you, give you suggestions on how you can make things better. I feel like that's one way that, well, in the context of teams, I feel like you can actually take your prompting game to the next level. And in terms of actual prompting, there was this post I did on LinkedIn some time ago, which I think I saw on the Microsoft Learn article, GCSE. So something you should have in mind when you're writing your prompt. So what's GCSE? I said GCSE and it's stuck in my head because it's like an exam, right?
yeah,
But I'm not talking of GCSE as an exam, but goal, context, source, and expectation. So within your prompt, it doesn't have to follow this chronologically, but
yes,
within your prompt, it should be clear what is the goal is, what is the
yes,
context, so meaning what are the limitations, what does the agent need to know. We can't tell the agent create a table when it doesn't have the tool to do that. So that's
yes,
you giving context. Then the source is like, what are the sources of information? Is it in a data table? Is it an uploaded file? Then expectation is just like, how do you want the output to be? So should it be formatted as a table? Should it be in bullet points and things like that? So if you have that in mind, GCSE when you're writing your prompt, and just check your prompt to be able to see that your prompt actually go through this. And you can build an agent that checks your prompts if it follows this, right? That says, okay,
yes,
what is the goal? What is the context? What is the source? What is the expectation? So you can use that. So talking about team efficiency, that can also be a good one. You can build a prompt validation agent where you paste your prompt and it tells you whether you followed this GCSE or how you can make it better. So I think those are some suggestions I have there.
oh wow. That's a lot, and that's actually very good. And I like the fact where you said we can build an agent that validates it because sometimes we might think the prompt we're generating meets all these criteria. But what if it
Right.
doesn't meet it? So just
Yes.
having an agent that does that for us, I think that's a plus.
Because I literally did a demo today where I
Yes,
wrote some prompts, but I remember taking time after I wrote the prompt, I took time to check have I
yes.
actually followed this, but I could offload that to an agent easily.
Oh,
So I think I'll take it to another level now. ALM is one of the things that we want to talk about. So in the context of AI and automation,
yes.
what does ALM look like, especially in this new world that we are with AI
In
agents and stuff?
in the new world we are, it doesn't mean we get to discard the previous ALM principles that we've used. It only means we get to ask ourselves the question, how can we make this better?
Right.
Because just before, and I like the fact that even the agents we are building now has to be in a solution
Okay.
because it can be easy for us to say, let's just abandon it because some people never actually loved following the ALM principles. But I think if we even know the benefit of the reason why we follow the ALM life
Yeah.
cycle, it makes it easy for us to see the benefit it will also grow in the world of AI. So in this age of AI doesn't mean we get to discard it. It means we get to ask ourselves the question, how can I make it better? How can I
Mm,
optimize it? How can I utilize it? So I
mm,
think the world of ALM should still continue. We should think of how
mm.
to make it better, how to optimize it, and we should not abandon it. We should continue to obey the best practice. Because I
Yeah.
feel like in the course of development, we always feel like, let me just skip it. I feel like it will always come back to bite you. In the world of development, it's so easy for us to skip a stage because every stage seems like, oh, it's just an extra work. But I think those extra work that we see now
Yeah.
is a buffer to make sure things run smoothly. And so even in the world of AI, following this ALM principle makes sure that the AI agent that we are deploying is the best. We're able to optimize the process to deliver optimal results every time.
That's really good. ALM is still ALM. And it's interesting how in the low code space it's easy to ignore ALM. It's easy to feel like ALM is not that important because you can
Yes,
always access your stuff easily. But especially once you start going to production, once you start making updates, you realize the actual value of good
actual
ALM.
value. Yes.
It's quite interesting because we have different flavors of Copilot and Copilot Studio anyway, because you have the Copilot Studio Lite, which you can build within Teams and within M365 basically. I think one thing I'm looking forward to is more ALM around that
Yes.
because within my team we've had this conversation and the fact is there are some agents that do not need to be a Copilot Studio agent. There's some agents that are happy being Copilot Studio Lite agents that you build in
Yes.
Microsoft Teams. But we don't want a case where it's now because of proper ALM, you now have to make it a Copilot Studio agent. So I think that's one thing I'm looking out for in
Yes.
the pipeline for more ALM to be available to agents that you build within Microsoft Teams because those agents are really good. And funny enough, there's some updates that comes to those ones even before the Copilot Studio agent. So I've interacted with people and they're like, the agents I build in Teams are way better than my Copilot Studio agent, right? So there's some disparity in the underlying technology. I know I've had conversations with the product team where we've talked about they've acknowledged the difference and talked about how they're trying to move things forward on the Copilot Studio side. But I'm really looking forward to more ALM on the Copilot Studio Lite agent. I don't know if you have any experience with Copilot Studio Lite agents.
So I necessarily don't play around with the Copilot Studio Lite agent like you
Yeah,
mentioned. I go deep into the main one. That's the one I actually focus on. So I don't necessarily use the Lite, but I
yeah,
use the regular Copilot that's available on Microsoft 365 chat or the agent that I give my knowledge base and
yeah.
connect to different knowledge source. Off the back of that, since we're still on ALM, can you
Yeah.
please share your biggest ALM mistake and what did you learn from that?
ALM mistakes. I think they're probably gonna be everywhere. Because
Oh,
because we've all been on different stages in this journey, right? But I'll say ALM mistake. I'll say making updates in production. I feel like that's like a big mistake. What we've realized is a good model is, and you figure that even in the pro code world, they follow releases, right? Even Microsoft, they
yeah,
follow release. That's why you see they can schedule release notes ahead of time
yeah,
because they follow releases, right? But in the low code world, because we have the keys to the kingdom, a lot of times we just feel like, oh, let's just push this update now. Let's just do this now, or let's just edit it straight away rather than having a proper plan in place. I feel like those are ALM mistakes. And I'll say another ALM mistake is not keeping track of release notes. That's when you're like, oh, well, I think we deployed to production last week. What were the updates that went to production? I don't know. You understand? But if you're not tracking those things properly, then you can't tell a good story to your client.
yeah.
So I feel like those are two big ALM mistakes that we should watch out for. And
Got
I'll
it.
say they are very common mistakes everywhere.
And just to add a little bit of something to that is that off the back of you talking about deployment note, we also of release notes, we also need deployment notes so that
Right.
anybody that wants to pick up a solution that you built and deploy it has information about that solution. Because it might be
Yes.
something very little you did. You might have added a new column and
Yeah.
nobody would know. They'll keep on deploying the solution and it will fail. You might have renamed something. So I worked with a team once whereby when you do any minute change to a solution, when you are done with the solution, at the Azure DevOps um, work item, there's a section where you put deployment steps. So you would
Yeah.
explain to successfully deploy the solution,
Oh, that's
what are the
perfect.
things you should do. So you
Yeah.
put the column name, if you created 5 column, what they will be called. And also you even go back to say what is the SharePoint logical
Yeah.
name behind it because the name it is called might be different from the SharePoint. So I really
Exactly.
like that. So anybody can pick up any solution.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
became something I got used to. So when I'm deploying
Yeah.
any solution, having that
Yeah.
mindset that, oh, if somebody wants to pick it up, what should they do? Because I
Hmm.
think if we are not moving solution and you're not there anymore, or someone else is picking it up for something happens, they would not really know and they would struggle. Deploying the solution will keep on failing, not knowing
Yeah.
that they're just missing something very minute.
That's good. I think solutions is another conversation on its own. And we'll probably have some conversations around best practice in terms of solution. But
Yes.
even stuff like environment variables now,
Ooh.
they are deploying to an environment and you just see names and you're like,
What is
what
this?
is
So
what do
where do
I
I
do
start?
here? Especially when you're not even when it's not a dataverse solution. If it's dataverse, that's fine. You don't really mess with environment variables. But say it's SharePoint and there's different sites, different lists, and you don't even know which what is what, right? That's good. Having like deployment notes. Initially, when you said deployment notes, I was like, oh, is that not the same thing as release notes? But I see the value in that. That's a good point. So let me ask you this in terms of data sources,
Yes.
the stuff you've done with AI and automation, is the data source, have there been challenges or have there been challenges around specific data sources? Or do you have recommendations around data sources? Say I want to start a new project. What would be your recommendation?
Giving clean data to your AI agent
Yeah,
gives you better results. So
100%.
the cleaner the data, the optimal result you would get. My bed is also data science, and he spoke about how sometimes we feel like we just export data, we don't clean it up, and we just pass it through it. And
Mm,
so the agent would also not give you the best. We
yeah,
need to make sure that if we're connecting to even a website, are we able to read from the website? Because some AI
yeah,
agents face that issue. Whenever we're
yeah,
connecting to a website and the hidden code behind it, they are unable to read from it, they are unable to interact with it. There are encryption in it that it cannot
yeah,
unravel. So, and even if this agent is not working, if you are not really a technical person, you might not even inspect the page to find out that they hid a lot of things.
mhm.
Or the website, that's another thing about
Dynamic
building
data.
with standard. That's another thing about maintaining standard. If somebody that was building the website did not take as much time to follow the best practice while building it,
Yeah,
it will be confused when he gets there and he's reading data that he doesn't understand. And what you are seeing and physically and what is seen back at totally different. And so you need to always make sure that the website, every data you're connecting has credible data. And so I
yeah,
think this is where we might not do a deep dive into how do we make our data credible. But also,
mm.
even in the website front, you need to make sure that the website we're connecting, they are readable. Because even RPA faces this problem where we're
Uh,
trying to read from a website and you cannot read the item or you cannot read
yeah.
the object. Or if it's something that someone is going every time to change, you might even have face difficulty with it. What about you? Have you faced an issue? What are some like
Oh, yeah.
restrictions?
He literally just hit the nail on the head back to back to back. Because there was like projects we were doing that
Yes,
involved searching on the web, and
yes,
it was so funny because we would go on the website, we see the data, it wasn't finding it. And I had
yes.
lots of digging with a colleague and we realized, well, it was all dynamic JavaScript and
Oh,
it uses Bing search. So within Copilot Studio, when you're like doing the web search, it uses Bing search and that relies on indexing. The way search works basically is they have like
yes,
server that indexes websites continuously. But the thing is, it couldn't actually index those values because of the way they've been coded. So the Bing search wasn't returning the information, and to, I think at the end of the day, we found an alternate data source that was still credible to be able to supply that data. So yeah, your point you mentioned about even the reachability of the data, I'll say that
Yes.
gave us a lot of trouble, but eventually we found the solution.
Still on our data topic, although this is a little bit not so much in AI, how can you give us a real example whereby starting with the wrong data affects the outcome of your project? I know you've given
Uh,
us an example with websites, even a Power Platform in general, if we want to expand it, just so we hit the nail on the head on how important having credible data is.
I think especially when we're saying data, is it really affects the AI side of things much more than say the app or even automation.
Mission.
Because for app automation, you have control. You can actually see it. If
See
it's
it.
wrong, maybe you're pointing to a wrong column, you can
Yes.
see that live and direct, right? But for the AI agents, I think a recent one is it wasn't me, it was a colleague that was working with a client on the project. And I think they had an Excel sheet with about 600 columns,
Oh,
maybe
wow.
between 300 to 600 columns. I think 300 was like the condensed format. It was way bigger than that. I wanted AI to reason across everything and just answer very intelligent
Question.
questions. The engineer actually tried to get it to work as much as he could, but it was really the data. And effectively, they've had to go back and do a review to see what they actually need. Because a lot of times when we hear, we're just like, oh, well, this is magic. Let's just throw everything at it,
Yeah, that's it.
figure it out. But you will get something, but you won't get the best.
Mm.
And you don't need to hit a fly with an hammer, or how do they say that? You don't need to have all the information for you to get your agent. How about you just give the agent the relevant information you want, right? So rather than expecting to just say, "Oh, this agent has access to all the files that I have access to, so it can answer my questions." How about you just create a folder with the actual files that you care about, right? And you use that folder in SharePoint as a knowledge source for the agent. With that, you get much more concise results rather than just giving it access to everything. So those are some things. It's more of an architectural question at this point, right? So it's like, do you actually need all that data? In this case, they found out that they don't really need all that data. And that solves the problem for the engineer, because at the end of the day, they're going to come back with a much more concise data set that the AI will be able to work with.
That's a good
All right, so I have something about learning. So there's a whole lot changing in AI. There's a whole lot. Even right now, a lot of the new changes to the Power Platform is really around AI, though we still see some little updates to Power Apps. I think recently we now have a confirm control within Power Apps. I'm here to try that, but within Canvas apps, you can actually have a confirm control. So you don't need to do all those pop up. Well, you're probably still going to pop it up, but you don't need to build everything
from
yourself.
scratch.
So that's quite nice. I'm yet to try it out, but I've seen a couple of posts around that. That's quite nice. But there's a whole lot happening in the world of AI. Do you have suggestions on how someone can actually stay on top of it?
I think the way we stay on top of it is, first of all, I'm still going to go back to data source, but in this time, data source is connections, people that you always have
Mm,
relevant information,
right.
sites and institutions that you will always keep you informed. Sites like our shameless blog, our
I was waiting
podcast,
to
because we
say
would
that.
always bring the latest and
Okay.
juiciest information on AI for you. But
Yeah.
also being on top of your game, following Microsoft on, if you are in Power Platforms system, following Microsoft on all their platforms. So you'll be the first to hear every information, every new release. You are on top of the game. You are reading it. Going back on data credibility, that's why I was saying following relevant one. We need to also make sure that the sites you are following, the websites, the accounts that you are following are credible. Because even in the world of AI, we all like to think that people are using it for good, but people are also using it for bad.
Oh, yeah.
People are
Yeah.
spreading false information regarding what AI can do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
cannot imagine how much false information is out there. That is why we need credible sources. That's why you
Yeah.
need to ensure that every source you are checking or using is credible. So you
Yeah.
don't end up in a situation whereby you are consuming information, but you're consuming wrong information. It happens because nowadays you'd see people calling me because if you have people in the older categories, they call you and they're like, oh, they saw this, and you're like, that's not true. Or my junior sister would call me and be like, well, see what I found. I'm like, that's not true. AI cannot do that. I know you want AI to do, but AI cannot do that. It's because we need to also be aware that there are malicious people out there
Yeah,
that could
100%.
transmit wrong information. So make sure
Yeah,
you follow one credible verified source, our source. We always give you good news. What do you
absolutely.
feel? What other ways? Also,
Oh,
UK,
yeah.
because you're
Um,
always on top. What other ways do you think?
yeah, it's just what you consume. Obviously, the
Yeah,
power platform, like we do all this stuff every day, so we'll give you the latest, concise information. We do attend user groups where people share information, and YouTube also. I live on YouTube. I think a lot of times I just open YouTube. I just say, okay, what's the most
what's new?
interesting thing? I just click on it and I watch, and you keep it, you stay informed. You don't necessarily have to practice it, but you're consuming that information, you're gaining you're
Not
gaining, and obviously verify whatever you see,
you see.
because not everybody is gonna say the truth.
Oh, that's true. Seeing that you have been in this AI space and you know so much about it, I want to ask about if there is a quick tip. If you were starting again, what would you
Mm,
do differently? What
mm,
parts of the copilot structure would you focus more on? Because we see so many agents and see people getting confused on which one should I do. But seeing
yeah.
that you most of them, which one is for specific people? And which one do you think specific people should focus on? And how would you
Mm.
rank it? I want to see your ranking.
So I'm sure I'll be biased because I'm a technical person.
Yes.
So obviously, as far as I'm concerned, Copilot Studio is the way to go because I know I have different tools available for me. And
Yes.
there are a lot of agents I'm building personally now to just help me work better. Some part of it can be done on Teams, but I'm not going to start there because I know I will take it further than what Teams can give me. Or if you want to build an agent that that wants to be used outside of M365, so say you want to deploy it to Telegram, for example, you can do that within Teams, right? You can only do it from Copilot Studio and deploy it, even though there are license considerations. But I would say I'm a Copilot Studio guy. You are mentioned, I didn't really do stuff on the M365 Copilots. That's the Copilot Studio Lite. There's so many names. I'm sure
Yes.
it's going to change in the nearest future. So just like you said, I didn't really used to do a lot of stuff in the Copilot Studio Lite until I saw some agents that some salespeople actually built. And the agent was delivering real value to them. I was like, oh, actually struggle a lot to get this to work in Copilot
Copilot
Studio.
Studio.
So let me just try it out. And that's how I started playing around with Copilot Studio Lite. So the Lite version is good for you to just do proof of concepts, which I've done a lot. Say I'm with a client and the client is talking about some things they want. I could just quickly go on Copilot Studio Lite to just test if it's possible. If it's possible there, then I know that I'll be able to build it in Copilot Studio full version. So that's how I prioritize them. So I do for the light stuff or just POC checks. But when
Yes.
I actually want to do something useful, I do it in Copilot Studio full
Okay.
version. But caveat is, as I've said, you don't always have to do Copilot Studio full version.
Yes.
The light version is
Powerful.
sufficient for many use cases. There's a legal agent that we recently delivered to a client that looks through tens of thousands of documents and returns response in less than 10 seconds. And that was done using the Copilot Studio Lite version. So it's a real solution if you're in the right context.
Okay. That's lovely too.
So you think we'll start rounding up. I've got this question here around career, around
Hmm.
the what does the big picture look like to say someone who is just interested in the Power Platform? What's the big picture? Is there a goal? Is there like a ladder? How in some cases you need to start maybe as a receptionist, then you keep on going and you climb the career ladder. Is there something like that in the Power Platform space too? So what does the big picture look like?
So I'm trying to figure out how best to explain it. But in the power platform space, it does, for some people, it looks like a ladder. they have this list of job titles they want to fill out. For example, you're a beginner, you're an intern, Power Platform intern. Some people
Yeah.
call it level one Power Platform developer. And then you go from like technical specialist, consultant, solution architect, and you keep
Yeah.
on climbing it. For some people, it's not a straight ladder. It's
Mm,
like rock climbing. And so you could
mm,
move and switch paths. Because you could
mm,
start at being interested in Power Automate, and then you decide that you want to focus in Power BI. So you are able
right.
to switch to other aspects of it. You could start as a developer and then you decide that you want to be a compliance expert in Power Platform ecosystem.
Mm,
So I think
yeah.
the most important thing is that we have amazing transferable skills. And so because
Mm,
we're learning amazing transferable skills, you don't have a linear career. You are able to expand your career vision
mm,
and go beyond a linear way of saying you're going to develop forever. Some people are interested in being developers forever. They love it. They don't want to
yeah.
do anything
Yeah.
else. And they can
100%.
do that. For some people, after some time, they might say, oh, I'm tired of this. Can I do something else? And they can
Yeah.
use all the expertise they have from development into
Yeah.
being solution architects. And what they now do is profess solutions and how best to do things. Some people are compliance experts on saying,
Yeah.
how do we make sure every solution we give out always meets the best standard. Some people actually become instructors and they're like, they
Mm,
are no longer going to develop, but what they're going to do now, they're going to teach other people on how to
yeah.
do it. I think the
Yeah.
power career path is something I love so much because you don't feel stuck. You are able to, yes, you could even become a power platform project lead. You no longer
Mm,
want to build, you want to lead projects. If along the
yeah.
line you have interest in project management, you are now able to lead power platform projects and not feel stuck in just development. What about you?
Yeah.
Do you
So
have
that's
any more
really good
little points to
because
add?
yeah, because even talking about switching, so I've heard people who have been developers, they've
Yes.
become architects, and they're like, I don't like this. I'm going back to the developer. And I've
Yes.
heard cases of people doing architecture and just going back to development. So there's people have comfort
Yes.
zones and area. It's not even just comfort zone because that kind of has a negative connotation to it, right?
Yes.
But it's just about where you can do your best work and there are so many options. Personally, I think my first contact with Power Platform was Power BI. Interesting enough, and now I don't even do anything
Probably.
related.
That's so strange.
So that's a real good point you made. That sometimes it can be like a rock climbing where it's not a straight path, but
Yes.
you just try different things and you find what sticks. That's it for this week on Power Platform Deep Dive. If you found this useful, follow the podcast, share it with anyone working with the Power Platform or interested in learning about Power Platform and AI. Leave a rating if your platform allows it.
And would love to hear your dev reality. If something broke, surprised you, or you learned a very important lesson while developing this week, please share it in the comments and we would feature it in the podcast and talk about it. We are so grateful for your interaction and we can't wait to see you next time. Bye.
All right.